Before we get into this special weekend edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Michael and Dell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98, for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. And one more thing, we know MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty, but MyPillow has just announced that they're extending their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Orders placed between now and December 25th will have their 60-day money-back guarantee extended through March the 1st, 2025. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Continuing our series of interviews with mayors of upstate South Carolina cities and towns, we move over to Pickens County, where we find Liberty with an estimated population of around 3,200. Joining us today, Mayor Erica Woods. Welcome, Mayor. How are you?
Thank you. I am doing great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, it's a pleasure. And I always start with just give us your elevator speech about Liberty.
Okay. Well, I love talking about Liberty. I've actually lived here since 2010. My husband and I moved here in 2010 with our son, and we moved here from Anderson County. But, once we got here, it was just so easy to fall in love with Liberty because of the small town charm that we have here. And basically, you can feel the close-knit community, and you could see the potential that we have here. So, we're about 4.5 square miles. We're here in the foothills of Pickens County, and we actually are in a great location. We're right off of Highway 123, so you have great access, easy access to Clemson one way, easily the other way. If you want to go a little further, we're 30 minutes from Greenville, 30 minutes from the mountains, and then Anderson's 30 minutes the other way. So we're really in a great location. We're really great as far as the family-friendly atmosphere that we have here. So it's really a nice little city to live in. It's a walkable city. You see a lot of people that love to walk and ride their bikes and run. So it's a great little town, and I'm very proud and thankful and humbled to be the mayor here in Liberty.
Let's talk about that. How did you decide to run for mayor, and had you ever held public office before?
Well, it's quite a story. I actually never aspired to be in politics or hold any kind of elected position. I had been involved in helping people with some of their campaigns, but never did it ever enter my mind to be involved myself in that capacity. But I want to say it just kind of happened, but, the Lord has a lot to do with your journey. And as long as you're making yourself available to Him, and I just wanted to be obedient. But, I did happen to run for city council here. So I did serve 2 years of my 4-year term, and then decided to run for mayor. So it just happened that I started getting involved in 2017. We moved here in 2010, but in 2017, I got involved in a grassroots effort of somebody putting together a fall festival. And because the city wasn't going to have a fall festival that year, so it ended up being people in the community that came together to put on a fall festival. And from there, I got more involved in the city. One thing led to the other, and I ended up being on a board for the Liberty events. I ended up volunteering at the Performing Arts Center and got on that board for a short period of time. But it's just that when you get involved, like I said, when you get involved, you just begin to realize the potential that this city has, and you want to give what you can. You want to contribute what you can. And so that's kind of how it happened with me. And then I had people just begin to ask me to run for council. And when I got on council, then, maybe a year later, I had people asking me to run for mayor. And I mean, that's a whole story. I don't know that we have time to talk about that. It could be a whole different segment to talk about that story. But it's been quite the journey. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. And with the help of our council and our staff, we've accomplished a lot. I'm actually in my 3rd year of my 4-year term.
So once you became mayor, what was the hardest part? Was there a surprise? Was there something that you weren't expecting?
Well, I guess the hardest thing is I've never been mayor before. And so, I'd been on council and I had learned a lot being on city council, but until you get in this mayor seat, you have no idea all that comes with it. And here's one of the challenging things was also that we had a brand new administrator at the time. So we were both learning together and learning, I was learning what really truly does a mayor do? What is my exact role? And then I come into City Hall and I'm figuring out what is going on in City Hall. What is going on in the city? What are we going to tackle first? And so, that was one of the biggest challenges is just at the beginning, trying to find my footing. But again, what was so great is that I could tap into resources. I had mayor friends that I was able to contact and just run things by them. We are part of the Municipal Association of South Carolina, so we have great resources there. The Appalachian Council of Governments is another resource. So, of course, just having a family, a husband, and close friends who were very supportive and have continue to be very supportive and pray for me and pray for this city have helped us to overcome and helped me personally overcome a lot of challenges.
Yeah. On our guest line today, Erica Woods, she is mayor of the city of Liberty. So let's talk about the future. The upstate of South Carolina is a growing area. Talk about the future growth of Liberty. Do you feel like you guys are managing it well? Yeah,
well, what's really great right now is that we just finished our comprehensive plan for the city. So we had actually been behind as a city and on that. So when I became mayor, I realized that, and that was a priority to make sure that we had our comprehensive plan. So we have a great planning commission, and they worked really hard for about a year on this, and the council worked alongside them, and we got a lot of great feedback from the community, and we held several different open public forums and town halls to have the community involved in that. And so, getting the feedback from the public, they want to see growth. This council's ready for growth. We want to see businesses come in to the city and as well as residential. So we are actually going to be looking toward right now that we're finished with our comprehensive plan, the next focus is going to be updating our zoning ordinance so that, we are prepared. We are preparing ourselves. We're open for business here. We're ripe for harvest here in Liberty. And so we're making sure that we are ready and able to usher in any of these developments that want to come in. Of course, we do want to look at it responsibly, and we're looking at the capacities that we have and what does that mean and what will we require. Again, because of our location, we're a great spot for people to come in and start a business here, bring business here, bring some housing development here, and we're looking at a variety of housing as well.
Erica,
so, we're ready.
Erica Woods is mayor of Liberty. For additional information about Liberty, just go to their website, libertysc.com, libertysc.com. Mayor Woods, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time today, and I love your enthusiasm about Liberty.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you. Will say, too, one of the things that we're proud of that we have worked on as a council is our infrastructure. So we have been working a lot on that. We've made a lot of progress and improvements on that. We were able to do that with the help of some of the grant funding that we have. And also, let me just throw in real quick, we love our events here. We love our community events. So one of our biggest events that we have is our 4th of July event, and we actually do that on the 4th of July. So if y'all get ready this coming 4th of July, think about us and come visit us here in Liberty. And also, we have a brand new event coming March the 29th. This is going to be the South Carolina Waffle Fest. It's going to be everything waffles. And so that we're going to be doing that on March the 29th from 10 to 4. So we'll have some great music. We'll have some great activities, great food, and all kinds of waffles. And that is presented by the U.S. Waffle Company here in Liberty.
Well, that sounds like my type of event.
Yes, so we'll look forward to having you join us.
Erica Woods, it's a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Email's always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. There's a lot of talk about making America great again, and it begins with making America healthy again. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss are at the forefront to educate and guide you to be your best self. The millions being spent in propping up Big Pharma are astounding, only to create long-term dependency and harmful side effects. Let's take a natural approach that isn't connected to a pharmaceutical company's bottom line. The coaches at PhD Weight Loss will show you how. The entire program is centered around science and nutrition, a proven roadmap that has helped over 8,000 clients lose over 331,000 pounds. You'll learn what to eat and when, how to quiet cravings, and finally get rid of that belly fat. Plus, you'll never take a medication. How many pounds would you like to lose in 2025? Do it the natural way with PhD Weight Loss, here to lead the charge to make America healthy again. Call PhD Weight Loss and schedule your consultation. 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. Continuing today's show, a couple of months or so back, we talked about the 2021 Corporate Transparency Act that Congress passed, which, according to the federal government, is designed to curb illicit financial transactions. At the time, I had Chace Campbell on with me, an attorney here in the Upstate. You can find Chace at chaselaw.com, and we talked about the reporting requirements, when you had to report, who had to report, and that type of thing. Since then, there's been a lot of drama, I will say, in this, as there's been an injunction, then it was lifted, and now apparently possibly it's back on again. So I've asked Chace to join me again on our guest line. Welcome and Happy New Year to you, Chace.
Happy New Year, Joey.
So let's just start at the beginning, Chace, and if you would, just give a quick overview to everyone as if they've never heard about this before.
Sure. 2021, Congress passed a law called the Corporate Transparency Act, as you gave a quick overview on, that basically said if you are the owner or you are in control of a corporation, LLC, limited partnership, anything that requires formal filings with the Secretary of State, then beginning with 2024, January 1st of 2024, you had to file what's called the beneficial ownership information with FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Network. Basically, think of it as an arm of the Internal Revenue Service. It's technically not, but close enough that for government work. And during 2024, you had 90 days to file it. That was not the big one that caught everyone. What was the big deadline was December 31 of 2024. If you had an existing LLC, corporation, etc., you had to file by midnight of December 31st, 2024, or else the federal government was going to start assessing fines of $591 a day for failure to file. There was a lot of litigation in 2024. There was a case out of Alabama that basically said the trial court, the federal trial court said, this is unconstitutional, and FinCEN, the federal government, cannot enforce it as to the plaintiffs in that case. That case was then appealed to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the circuit appellate court that governs Alabama and a few other states surrounding there. Then there was the famous one out of Texas that basically same logic. This is unconstitutional, and please you do not enforce it as to the plaintiffs. And that one was a preliminary injunction. In other words, an injunction, a request for an injunction that the court would not require the plaintiffs to have to file FinCEN, basically say, or with FinCEN, saying, if we file, then we lose basically our argument as to how we're going to be harmed. That court, the Texas court, said, not only am I going to grant the injunction as to the plaintiffs, but I'm going to grant an injunction that no one requested in this case, which is going to be a nationwide injunction. Basically, FinCEN, federal government, cannot enforce the Corporate Transparency Act as to anyone anywhere in the United States, whether or not you are a plaintiff in this case.
So that kind of let us all off the hook temporarily then.
It did.
Yes.
Again, a temporary injunction is an injunction before the trial actually occurs, so it's basically a temporary reprieve.
Yeah.
The federal government said, hold on, you granted something that was broader than anyone requested. We're going to file what's called an interlocutory appeal, basically an appeal midstream. And that appeal on an emergency basis was to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, the appellate circuit court that governs Texas and its surrounding states. And just before Christmas, the 23rd, in fact, that court, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, said the nationwide injunction vacated, or technically stayed, which meant the injunction was not enforceable. Yep. Therefore, the CTA was.
So therefore, we're we're back on track. We got a report.
Now everyone had to report.
Yes.
And we were all facing a deadline of December 31st. Now, the federal government said, well, because so many people relied upon that nationwide injunction, they were going to extend it from December 31st to January 13th, effectively 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then we all got whiplash again, because the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, the very court that said, no, that injunction is been suspended, suddenly, right after Christmas, said, no, we're going to put it back in. The CTA is not enforceable until at least oral arguments can be heard. And so we are now back to, you don't have to file as of, well, call it today.
For now, yes.
This may change tomorrow, but as of today, you don't have to file.
Yeah, so we're back to the we're kind of still in the traffic pattern circling here. With me today, Chace Law. We're talking about ChaceLaw.com. We're talking about this Corporate Transparency Act. So let's talk for a minute. I mean, what are the chances? And this is quite honestly, as someone who owns a few businesses, Chace, I have been delaying this to the very bitter end with the idea that maybe come January the 20th, when we have a new president, that this could completely go away. Is that a chance?
Technically, no. Practically, there is a chance, and I'll explain it this way. The current administration, which of course is the Biden administration, has been pushing to enforce the Corporate Transparency Act. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, being in charge of the Department of Justice, is been pushing for the Corporate Transparency Act to be enforced. When it was passed in 2021, then President Trump had vetoed it. Congress overrode his veto. So it's a very interesting political situation, because we now have President Trump coming back into office on January 20th. He was not a favor of the Corporate Transparency Act, but it was very popular in Congress, enough for Congress to override his veto. So it's not without its supporters. And so we're all going to be in a very interesting wait-and-see pattern, even after Trump comes back into office.
Yep. Well, let's assume for a minute, of course, I guess the other scenario would be that Congress could come back and they could just change the act or eliminate the act again. They could just come back and change the whole thing. Let's just assume, though, and with me today, Chace Campbell with Chace Law. Find him online at ChaceLaw.com. Let's talk for a minute, Chace. Let's assume that at some point, this is all the legal things are worked out, and this is being enforced by the brand new Trump administration. Talk with us about who has to report and what's the information they're looking for, and what's the whole purpose of this?
Essentially, the law is looking for a beating heart of who is ultimately responsible for making decisions for this company. The reason that Congress passed it, and the reason they stated that they passed it, is because so many people would have shell companies. So company A would be owned by company B, which would be then owned by company C. And so after a while, you had to work your way through a bunch of shell companies to figure out who actually owned this company, who really could make decisions for this company. Congress said this makes it too easy for people to hide money. It makes it too easy for people to try tax evasion, and it makes it too easy for people to hide drug money or launder drug money or potentially terrorist money. And so it was under that reason that they passed it. But ultimately, who actually has to file really comes down to two things. If you own the company or a substantial part of the company, or even if you don't own the company, can you make decisions for the company? CEOs, general counsels, CFOs, people like that. All those people have to be identified, and their personal information, copy of their driver's license, copy of home address and telephone number, date of birth, all of those things have to be filed with the federal government. So it gets to be rather invasive on a personal basis.
Yep. Now, when this is when you do file this, is this something that becomes public information? I mean, would other people be able to access this information?
Under the terms of the law as currently written, no. You are not allowed to access it. It can only be accessed by law enforcement for law enforcement purposes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But then again, ask that to people whose personal tax returns also get leaked to the media.
Yeah.
Those are supposed to be personal, and yet for some reason they end up in the media.
Yeah.
So
now, originally, of course, the penalty for not filing was $500 a day. You explained to me before that because of inflation, that's already risen. What is the penalty now?
The law states it is $500 per day. However, because of a provision in the law that says that the federal government can increase it for essentially cost of inflation, it is $591 per day. So it went up from $500 a day to $591 per day, which is the current amount as of January 2nd, 2025. Again, with inflation, it can go up from there.
Yeah. And who is actually in charge of enforcing this? Let's say the law is allowed to be enforced. Is it the Department of Justice? Is it the IRS? When you go online to complete this form, where are you completing it?
You are going to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network homepage, which is commonly known as FinCEN.
Mm-hmm.
FinCEN is kind of an enforcement arm of the Internal Revenue Service, the Department of Treasury, in conjunction with the Department of Justice. So it's kind of a committee, so to speak.
Yep. So, well, it's all very interesting, and it's something that literally we have been following for this past year. So, as someone who's been in the practice of law for a while, what's your gut tell you? I mean, eventually, is this going to be worked out, and will we have to file this, or do you think there's a good chance that this reporting requirement will go away?
Unfortunately, I would not be able to predict this any more than I could predict the outcome of who wins the Super Bowl coming up. In one respect, you would say it's unconstitutional because of X, Y, and Z, but on the other hand, there have been courts who have looked at it and said, no, we think it's absolutely constitutional because of ABC. So it really will come down to probably the United States Supreme Court. Unless Congress acts, it will probably come down to the United States Supreme Court, because already the various circuit courts are beginning to solidify on two sides of this issue. So in 3 to 5 years, unless Congress acts, we're probably going to have a decision by SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, and then it's going to be a question of who is on the Supreme Court at that time.
Yep. Chace Campbell with me on our guest line today. One final question, Chace. Again, we're going to assume that eventually we're all going to have, the business owners are going to have to complete this requirement of the Corporate Transparency Act. Is this something that individual businesses can do themselves? Does it require an attorney to do it for you? And does it cost anything to file?
It does not. There is no filing fee by FinCEN. Which is very important because if you were to Google this, there are a bunch of websites that will charge you anywhere from $400 to $1,400. We've seen everywhere in between to do this, claiming that's the filing fee. That is not the filing fee. But I will say this is not for the faint of heart. It is easy to get things wrong. When I did it myself for the first time, I got questions answered wrong. It's almost like it was intentionally designed to trip you up. So it is something that you do not want to rush through if you're going to try doing it on your own. Or if there's any questions, please talk to an attorney, whether it's me or someone else, because getting things wrong could have real consequences if it's enforced.
Yeah, well, you certainly do not want to get it wrong and then end up having to answer to one of the government agencies because you potentially entered the wrong information or whatever. So, it's just, in my opinion, it's just another example of the overreach of the federal government and just another regulatory. And again, I'm going to hold out and hope that the new Trump 2.0 will potentially come back and change it, or at least make it a bit easier to understand. Chace Campbell, it's always a pleasure to have you again. You can find Chace online at chacelaw.com, chacelaw.com. If you have questions or if you need information when we get to the point, if we do, in fact, have to start reporting, Chace can help you out there. Chace, appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Joey. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. Co-host of the popular New America Movement, which can be heard at thenewamericapodcast.com and streamed on Facebook, David Cox and his son Jordan dive into the issues that affect all Americans. Will educate you on the evils of leftist ideology. David is a successful business owner, a former pastor. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my show. Welcome, David. How are you, sir?
I am doing awesome. Thank you for having me on the show.
It is a pleasure. Before we get into a couple of the issues that I wanted to talk with you about, tell us about New America Movement. And I believe you recently completed like your 250th show. Why did you and your son decide to start producing your own show?
I think we need more of a conservative podcast in our community to talk about local issues, state and national issues. I think a lot of people enjoy listening to the opinions of local business people, local religious people, and people that just have an interest in politics. We don't get everything right. We're not always right. We're rarely wrong. So we enjoy it, and it's a fun hobby. My son and I, we did our 250th podcast last week, and we're just stoked about what our future holds. And so it's a great adventure for us, so we're excited about it.
Yeah. It's got to be kind of special to be doing this with your son, too.
It is. A lot of people say, how do you do that, maintain that relationship as a father and a businessman, and yet have a co-host like Jordan? Jordan is a little bit different than me. He's very aggressive and opinionated, and I like that about him. We team up great together. He is a full-time employee for the podcast, and he spends a tremendous amount of time endeavoring to find out what the truth of these issues are. And he sort of helps me set my agenda each week. And so we get along great, and we're excited to work together.
Yeah. Again, you can find it at thenewamericapodcast.com, and you stream on Facebook. Tell me when you can hear this.
We normally start on a Monday at 7 o'clock. It's on Big Patriot Radio, but it's also on our Facebook page. We share it with many different platforms in the community, like a YouTube, Instagram. So you can pretty much find us anywhere if you type it in, and we appreciate all the listeners that have supported us through the years.
Sure. Just search for the New America Podcast, and you'll be able to find it for sure. All right, so South Carolina and the Upstate has seen tremendous growth in recent years. Of course, I'm a lifelong resident of the Upstate, so I've seen this progress over the years. According to recent reports, South Carolina is the number one state for inflow to outflow ratio. Now, what that means is, and that number, by the way, is 2.11. So for every person who moves out of South Carolina. 2.11 persons move into the state. And Greenville's among the top 10 cities in the nation for people moving into the city. This, of course, has created some huge traffic issues. I live on the GSP side of Greer, and used to could go downtown Greenville on I-85 in about 15 minutes. That can now take 30 minutes to an hour. David, you believe you have a solution for this traffic logjam. Talk with us about that.
Well, it's nothing new, but it is innovative for our community, and that is a light rail commuter system that would run basically from Smartenburg to Clemson. It would start in Clemson, come through Easley, go into Greenville, make a stop in Greer, and then stop over in Smartenburg. Then it would reverse itself. Now, you can run multiple lines on this, depends on your budget, but every rail system that I've ever been a part of or seen in my travels around the country and the world, they're always loaded with passengers. So people say to me, well, who would use it? Well, just look around the rail systems that are out there, and they're packed, because people realize they're a very affordable way to go from one place to the next. And I share with people that we have a more aging population, people that can't drive for whatever reasons, or people that just don't want to get on 85 or the major highways that link all of these little boroughs together. A light rail system that's done well would allow people to live in Smartenburg and come visit a game in Clemson. Or if you're in Smartenburg and you want to send your kids to Clemson, you wouldn't have to have a dormitory. You could very easily say, hey, hit the rail system 2 or 3 times a week, and you know your kid is safe. They're not on 85 where you have to worry about their safety on these busy highways. Also, this rail system hopefully could tie into the airport. We're one of the few airports in the country that doesn't have a secondary source of interest. Right now, you have to go 85, get off the airport, or go the back roads through Greer. So we need another secondary source of transportation. This is designed to help everybody in our community find a way or an alternative form of transportation other than depending on an automobile or having to travel on these major roads, particularly 85. And sad to say, we're seeing what that's doing in terms of growth. I hear there's an estimated 1 to 1.5 million people that are still planning on moving into the upstate over the next 10 to 15 years. If that's the case, getting on 85 will be it'll be like getting at the Darlington Speedway. You're just taking your life in your own hands. And right now it's very dangerous. And there doesn't a day go by that you don't see some sort of bad wreck on 85. Most towns that are growing recognize the need for a secondary source of transportation. A light rail system is doable, and that's not easy. A lot of people have a lot of questions about it. I am available to talk about this to different communities and venues because I believe smart people who are innovative can come up with solutions that can fix this problem and give the people of the upstate a secondary source of transportation other than a car and a road like 85.
Yeah. David Cox with me today. We're talking about a light rail commuter system. Now, David, I got to tell you, this just seems like common sense to me. I mean, everywhere I travel, as you said, there's some type of rail system, particularly in the larger cities. So what's the hesitation to starting this in the upstate?
I think a lot of our leadership and politicians who have lived in the upstate have just become used and accustomed to driving their car everywhere. But if you've traveled any like you have and I have, you notice that places like D.C., New York, and Chicago, right now even Charlotte and Raleigh have taken advantage of these rail systems, and then the people love it. If you go to any of these cities and you take a secondary source of transportation like a light rail system, there are literally thousands of people a day that take advantage of this. We just have to wake up as leaders and realize we're about 20 years behind time on this. And in order to be able to do the job that we need to do, we've got to see into the future. And this requires innovative, smart leadership on our side, where political leaders are willing to do feasible studies and say, hey, this is a project worth doing. The payday won't come today or next year, but over time, when this system is in place, it will benefit the people that live in the upstate, especially with the predictions of the high population that's coming. So we need to get our politicians on board. And I have talked and interviewed with a lot of them. Everyone seems to love the idea. It's just, where do you go from here? We've got to get a little bit of funding to do a feasible study so we can determine how, where, and how this would lay out. for the people of the upstate. What cities would actually be a benefit from this, how it would tie into the airport, and maybe even want a spur that goes to somewhere like BMW.
Yeah.
And once we can get this in place, then we can begin to move forward with some better funding. I think there could be some opportunities for some private sector to get involved in this, because these kind of projects sort of require a private joint effort with the government to be able to pull these sort of systems off. But people say, well, we waited too late. No, we haven't. We haven't waited too late. People say, well, where's the rail going to be? Well, we got 1,700 miles of rails in South Carolina that are not even used. There's plenty of ways to make this happen. It's just sitting down, working through the logistics, having leadership get on board with it and say, hey, I'm planning for the future for South Carolina. And I believe the right kind of people are going to make this happen. And the people of our community are going to be the big winners in this in about 10 years.
Yep. You're right that it's never too late to get something like this started. If you'd like additional information, and if this makes sense, David Cox with me today, you can find a Facebook page that David has set up. It's Upstate Rail Project. Just search for Upstate Rail Project. You can message David there. His email is there, david@upstaterailproject.com. Get in touch with David. He'd love to come speak to your group. Maybe you're part of a civic organization that this would make sense to have David speak. But David, I appreciate somebody just somebody's got to get it started. And I appreciate your voice out there in the community advocating for this, because it makes a whole lot of sense to me for sure. David, I appreciate your time today. Appreciate what you do in our community.
Hey, thank you so much. Always good talking to you.
Always a pleasure. That's it for this special weekend edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.